Daisy.
And I'm Terri.
And this is the Monday Mindset Podcast,
where we share things of interest to us and hopefully to you.
So let's get started with episode number 172. And this week, it's not Terri's turn. And it's not my turn. It's a sort of a catch-up turn. We thought we'd have a bit of a catch-up. We were talking about this before we started recording, and we always, the timeline is always off. But you will have heard us talk about what a busy summer we had lined up, which is why we ran some repeats. And the first two episodes of September, which you will have already listened to by the time you're listening to this, but which aren't actually out yet as we're recording this. See how confusing it gets? But we're just at the end of, for us, it's the beginning of September. We're both at the end of an extremely busy summer, big changes for both of us. So we thought we would do a little bit of a catch up before we get back into recording proper for us. Like I say, we did get a bit ahead before Terri's big move, but we're just sort of starting to gear up to get back into the normal swing of things. And we thought we'd have a bit of a catch up because we've both had big changes in one way or another. So Terri, I mean, we know you had a big move ahead. How did that move go? Of course, it won't have gone absolutely to plan because these things never do they?
That's right, Daisy. And the other thing I was just thinking as you described, not only did we each have a busy summer, but I was just thinking neither of us have been in a position lately to prepare a content focus topic as far as listening to a podcast or reading a book. I have not done any of those things that are so much a part of my life for at least 3 weeks now. So another good reason for doing a catch-up episode. So my move, of course, in retrospect, looking back and say, you know what, it was fine. It went fine. But there were so many ups and downs throughout. August 10th, movers came in with a giant truck and took everything out of my apartment.
It's a pretty cool truck. I noticed they didn't have the same truck when they delivered, but the truck they came to pick up was great. It had rainbows all over it and everything. I loved it. I had moving truck
That's
envy.
Right. It had a unicorn on it. It was great.
Great fun.
It's interesting that you brought that up because last night I was talking with some new neighbors and they were really shocked how big our moving truck was. So they were thinking, holy cow, these people must have a ton of stuff. And I don't know if this is true in other places, but at least where I was, and I think many movers in the US, if you're doing a cross-country move or, a cross-state line move, oftentimes what they do is they bring a truck to get your stuff. So I think the truck they came to get my stuff was maybe a 26-foot truck, which I definitely did not have 26-foot worth of stuff to fill that truck. So it was not full. Then they go back to their location. So I was in San Diego. That company was in LA. So it took those guys about 3 hours because the truck doesn't go quite as fast as a car. So they took about 3 hours to come down, get the stuff, and drive back 3 hours. Then they go to their warehouse and they unload that truck. And they wait until they have some other cross-country moves that are going
and do part loads.
Yeah, and going in the same direction. And then they load all of those onto a semi. So even bigger than a 26-foot moving truck. So it was the semi that came and delivered the stuff. And this is what panicked, I think, all of the neighborhood because they were thinking, oh my gosh, what are these people bringing? But actually, our stuff was probably less than a tenth of the truck or even less than that.
Yeah, it was the same thing when I moved from France. They had to park it up in the local village. You couldn't get big stuff into me, but they knew that was going to be the case. So they went backwards and forwards in a small van. And you're part load. So you're going back with, somebody else's stuff.
That's right.
And the same when they came back here, they came back with 2 smaller vehicles because although I'm in a town now, the road isn't really big enough to bring one of those big trucks like the one that turned up at your place was huge.
It was. And they asked me beforehand, will we be able to get a semi down your street? And I thought, well, I sure hope so. I live on a cul-de-sac now, and they drove past, turned around in the cul-de-sac and came back. Interestingly, at the end of the move, the truck broke down. So
oh no,
I thought they were gone. I was relieved. I had all my stuff. And all of a sudden, the mover came back in and said, could I borrow some tools? So fortunately, had some tools delivered. So gave them some tools to borrow so they could fix their truck and leave. The other thing I learned about cross-country moves that was a little different than when I moved to Hawaii, totally different experience, but is that they really can't give you a set date of when your stuff will be delivered. So I had all my move planned. I thought, okay, if you pick up on the 10th, I'd like you to deliver on this day. And the man kind of chuckled and said, ma'am, that's not how it works.
Oh, really?
We'll let you know.
No, set date here.
Oh, no.
Wow.
We'll let you know when we load the truck so you'll know when it's going to get there. But
right, it's coming tomorrow.
what they ask is, what is the earliest date we can deliver? And so for us, the earliest date they could deliver was on the 20th of August. And they actually delivered on the 27th of August. So they just need to know, when will you be there? What's the earliest we could bring it? And then they give themselves several weeks. And so I think they said, we'll have it there between the 20th and September 8th. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't imagine you can't deliver my stuff within a month. But they did.
Oh, I suppose that's coming back to this whole part load thing. Mm-hmm. They've got to wait until they've got however many houses.
That's right.
To load up the big trucks to put it together.
And I assume they pad that time just a little bit so that they don't overpromise.
Yeah.
You know, if they tell you, yes, we'll be there on the 22nd, and then the truck breaks down or, you know, something happens on the way there, they're not now late. So they then reached out the day before and said, we just want to let you know that your stuff has been loaded, which means they're going to leave the next day. And then the next day I got a call saying, we'll be there tomorrow. So got all ready to have the stuff delivered. But you know this story, but for listeners, we had planned to have everything ready in the house, all kind of renovated, new paint, new flooring, everything ready. So it was just move in ready when we got here. And things did not go to plan. So when we got here, we ripped out carpeting and linoleum. We painted all of the rooms. Stuff got delivered, and we didn't have new flooring down yet. So we really couldn't bring everything into the house. So the garage got full with stuff, and we continued the renovations, which are actually still happening at the time that we're recording. I'm actually at a neighbor's house today. They're gone for the week. So I'm at a neighbor's house so that we have a quiet space where I can record, because at my house, there's flooring being installed, which is a lot of pounding, a little bit of yelling, and some buzzsaw going in the background. So this is where I am for a quiet thing. And as you know, Daisy, just some other little events happening along the way, things that didn't work in the house. Air conditioning was broken, water was brown, all kinds of things. So we've had people out to fix things and repair work to be done while we're trying to paint and do these things. So it's just been a really kind of hectic, a little bit frustrating time, but I know that in a few more weeks, it's all going to kind of come together, and it's going to be our space that we've created. So I know it's coming, and I just need to kind of tolerate these next couple of weeks.
First name basis with all the staff at Lowe's.
That's right. That's right. We make at least one, often days 2 trips to Lowe's to buy supplies, tools that we didn't bring or don't have, materials, paint. The paint guy must just recognize us and just pull up our paint color without us even having to ask at this point. We got scaffolding. So we have just done all kinds of fun new things in updating this house. And then last night, we got to meet a bunch of our neighbors. We actually live on a street that the people know each other. They really got to know each other during COVID. It's a cul-de-sac. So during COVID, they would pull out chairs and sit all the way around the outer edge of the cul-de-sac, 6 feet apart or whatever. And then they got to know each other, and they did that weekly for a while. And then they kind of moved into a smaller circle as things changed. So they invited us. And so last night we got to meet a bunch of our new neighbors and share our moving and construction woes with everyone and listen to their experiences. So that was really great.
Busy summer.
Absolutely. And coming into September, also busy.
But how is it? How is your new environment? Because it's a very different environment you're living in now.
It is very different. People who know a little bit about my last few years know that I've lived in several different environments. I have a tendency to move about every year, and I'm pretty much hoping this is the last one for quite a while. But I'm in a much more, this word is hard for me to say, rural area. So that drive to Lowe's to get the day's supplies takes about 15 minutes now. Whereas when I lived in San Diego, that would have been a 5-minute ride. When I lived in San Diego, I lived 1 block from Whole Foods. I lived 5 blocks from Trader Joe's. And now the closest grocery store again is 10 to 15 minutes drive. So it is, something to get used to have more planning required to get places and get things, but it's a much calmer, slower pace than living in San Diego. Not quite as slow paced as it was when I lived in Hawaii for that time, but it's pretty quiet here. Everyone probably knows, and for some people it's been a few more weeks since this, but we had a really beautiful super full moon, or whatever it's called, super blue moon, whatever. And getting to see that out here in the mountains was just amazing the other night. We do live in the mountains, not the big mountains right near us, but some mountainous areas. And every single place I drive, even if I'm just driving to the grocery store, it's a beautiful drive, beautiful view from the parking lot. I don't think I'm ever going to get sick of seeing these mountains.
Oh, that's nice. And the dogs have settled in, and the dogs will get on well. It's nice for Koa and Loki to enjoy playing with each other by the sounds of it. Wrestling, we were talking before we started recording. They have a big old wrestling session every morning.
Oh my gosh. I mean, if anyone is trying to figure out how to get some more activity into their life, you just need a wrestling match every day, and you get tons of activity. They wear themselves out, which is great, and they get along well.
It's always been one of my big excuses that you have to have more than one dog.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They have struggled with some things, again, we pulled up the carpeting so that they loved laying on the carpeting, because none of our dogs have lived on carpeting. So they loved getting to lay down on the carpeting.
And how's Gracie been with that? Because I seem to remember, although I guess it's not a slippery surface, was it a slippery hard surface that she didn't like in Hawaii? I always remember that hilarious video that you posted with her jumping from one rug to another. It suddenly struck me that she doesn't like hard surfaces too much.
She doesn't. She's a lot better about it now. It's the clicking noise of her paws on it, the claws click on the hard surface. She's pretty good with that now. But, we've moved their dog beds 47 times, because every day we're doing a different project and moving the scaffolding. And so they go into this room and lay down, and then they go into this room and lay down. And one of our dogs is deaf. So during this time of construction and things, the pounding, the saws going, all of those things, he just sleeps and he's super chill because he doesn't hear any of that. Whereas the other 2 dogs are pretty neurotic because that sound is pretty scary to them. So there's been some challenges for them so far in this transition, but I think they're going to settle in just great as we finish up the projects.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Big change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And how about for you, Daisy? I know you had some big focus that you've been kind of putting your energy into over this past month.
Well, yes, I have to say I am feeling quite pleased with myself, because I have been flat out, and I really have been flat out working very, very hard on building work. And funnily enough, we have overlapped quite a lot in things we've been doing. And as listeners will know who do listen to us regularly, I've mentioned many a time about my stuff being in storage. Turned out it was supposed to be in storage for a couple of months. As you were saying, same same kind of setup here. You know, they picked my stuff up from France and it went off up to Lincolnshire or something, up in the north of England, long way away from where I live. But it gets put in storage and then they pull it out again when it wants delivering. And they give you 2 free months of storage. And I thought I won't need much more than that. You know, I thought I had builders lined up and all the rest of it. But yes, over 2 years later, stuff still in storage. And of course, that became quite a big stressful thing because obviously, you know, month on month, it's more and more money. And the thing that became the thing that was holding it up turned out to be work that I had to do. It was originally work that builders were going to do, but it was the 2 rooms that I had to get done and clear so that I could move people. Well, some people will know because I've talked about it before, but the layout of my house, it's a maisonette, it's actually half a house, is that there are 2 rooms and the bathroom downstairs, and then stacked on top of that are 2 rooms, the kitchen and a living room. And basically, I've been doing all my living on that ground floor level. It's a ground floor and a basement flat maisonette, and the 2 rooms were building sites downstairs, and I basically all my living was in the kitchen, and then my living room, was my bedroom, and was my study. It's where I did all my working from as well. But to get my stuff out of storage, I had to get these 2 rooms done downstairs so that I could move that 1 room down into the 2 rooms, and that 1 room became the storage unit. But the trouble was that it was me who ended up having to do the work, and it was a lot of work. It wasn't just a reasonably quick prep and decoration job. There was all sorts of building work that went on. And obviously, you know, there's my editing work and things and various reasons to procrastinate, and it dragged out for a long, long time. But I really got my act together. I was all geared up. And then I got waylaid with, I think I mentioned this before we stopped recording for the summer, with working out on the scaffold at the front. And of course I had to do that while the scaffold was there. So that was another month. But I was determined this year. I didn't take enough advantage of the summer last year because, of course, it's so much easier to do all these things in the summer. You know, all the windows can be open, things dry faster. It's just, that is the time of year that you want to be getting these things done. So I was determined this year to get things done so that my stuff could come out of storage, and then the windows could get done. The windows couldn't get done before the stuff came out of storage because I didn't want the movers to mess up my windows. And also the radiators, that was the other thing, that all my heating was just really in 1 room last winter. So it was so important to get these things done over the summer. And so I was really reluctant. I had to sort of get to a point before I would book the movers, because of course once the movers were booked, that was my deadline. And I think we're both a bit like this. We do work well to a deadline. We'll go up to the wire, but once that deadline's in place, you've got to do it. And that was the case with me. As soon as that was booked, that was it. I had to go flat out. It had to be done. That room had to be clear with a day to spare because the plumber had to be able to take up the boards to put a radiator in across the room. So it just had to be done. So I was, oftentimes working till 8, 9. I think my record was 10:30. I was working till one night. It just had to get done. So I haven't really been doing much of anything this summer apart from all this building work. But I did it. I have got it done. The movers came last week and I am down, as we're recording now, I am downstairs in what is my study living room, and I have an actual bedroom, a room that is just a bedroom at the back of the house, which is really nice because it's quieter back there and it's darker at the front. There's always the street lights, so it's never properly dark. And it's very nice. The dogs took a while to get used to it. They really don't like change. They really take a while to adjust, but slowly but surely they're adjusting to that too. So yes, I'm feeling pleased with myself. Feel like the back is broken of the major. There's still lots of work to be done, but I can now tackle things. I can take chunks off and do them when I want to. I can clear some time, and I can, dedicate a weekend or dedicate a week. Or without this, I don't think I'd realized how much pressure and how much stress. It really feels like a weight lifted. Now I haven't got that. I've got to get these things done because I've got to get my stuff out of storage and this, that, and the other. Now it's done. I've done it.
That's great.
It feels good.
Yeah, that's great. And there's one more big thing that was requiring someone else and timing it with them, and that is you're going to get new windows delivered soon and installed. So you got all of these other things done, so that now this it seems like, from my understanding, this is the last thing that is required of someone else, a contractor, of someone else to really do.
They're the really big things. Mm-hmm. There are a couple more big-ish things for the builder that I've now been working on. This it always makes me laugh. I always laugh when he says such and such a thing is going to take such and such a length of time. When he first started, my builder Tom, he's a great guy. I've decided Toms are great. I have Tom the plumber, who's lovely, and Tom the builder, who's great. I asked him, how long do you think all this work is going to take? Oh, about 8 weeks. Well, we've been working together for a year now. So he's got a couple more big-ish things. There's the hallway to do I have lovely oak planks, but of course they were in storage. So that hasn't been able to be done until that comes out. And there's some reworking of the steps and the entranceway, but they're all the last big things that somebody else is doing. But then, yes, everything else really are just, the minor building work and decorating work that I can take off, chunks here and there as I feel like doing, without this big weight on my shoulders of stuff in storage and the pressure of having to be paying week and week and week of storage. And of course, with winter approaching, winter is coming, Game of Thrones style, not quite as scary as that, but everything changes when the winter comes. You've got to start thinking about heating. And so all the things, like you say, the things like with the new windows coming, my windows are really old and rickety, and I have to hold them in place with screws and things. Well, I shall have nice new double glazing, so it should all be warmer and a bit quieter as well, which will be nice.
That's great.
Very exciting.
You mentioned the timing that things take, and we experienced that on this end as well. One of the house repairs that we scheduled to have done prior to our move was supposed to take 2 weeks. So we scheduled it in June, thinking it'll take a couple of weeks. Even if it takes a little longer, it'll be ready by July. And then the painting and the new flooring can happen in July, and we'll move in August. But that project that was supposed to take 2 weeks took 9, and took until...
They were still there. Weren't they still there until the day before you moved in or something?
I think they finished
making a mess.
I think they finished finally on Wednesday, and we arrived Friday at 5:00. So it was just down to the wire. I guess they sent in... They had been a crew of 2 men working the job. They sent in 5 more. So the last week there were 7 people on the task. So lots of things learned in this, as I'm sure your renovation to your place, lots of things learned, although this is not the first time you've done that. So you've got lots of experience.
So there seem to be always new challenges and new things to learn. Always useful taking forward, but not so fun in the moment. I always find they're great fun to look back on and talk about a couple of years down the line, but not so fun when you're going through them.
Absolutely.
But like you, I plan on staying here for a while. I think that's one of the reasons why I get really stressed about trying to do things right, trying to make the right decision about everything. And I think maybe one of those reasons is because I plan on being here for a while. So I really don't want the inconvenience and especially the cost of doing things again. Once the money runs out, the money runs out. And so it's a real pressure, isn't it, to just try and get it right the first time.
I have a feeling you do that anyway, Daisy. You are very good at things being done right. You're not usually, in my experience with you, someone who, well, let's just slap something in here and see. Like you want things done properly. And I don't think that's only in this house. I think that's something that is of value to you.
And I do like to think about things. I think this is one of the reasons why I found the when I had my stuff come out of storage and my movers turn up, it felt like it had gone on for ages, and it felt very intense and it felt very stressful. And it was actually only 2 hours, and it went really smoothly. But it was when I was looking back on it, what I found difficult is I was forced into making decisions in the moment all the time. Where do you want this? Where do you want this? Where do you want this? I want to dither about a bit and think about it. Mm-hmm. When I do things, I like to spend time sitting and looking at it and thinking about it so that I can make the right decision when I come to do it. But I like that thinking time. Mm-hmm. I need to dither. You're putting me on the spot too much.
Well, I had plenty of time to think about things as our stuff was being delivered, because 2 men arrived and one was a little less able to do some of the physical work. And so one was bringing in everything, and I took them some water and I said, well, I brought some for the other guy. And the one who was moving everything said, oh, he's sleeping. I thought, oh, geez, so I'm paying for movers who are sleeping right now. Great. But so I had a lot of standing around time to think about where the next set of things that they brought up to the house should go.
I could have done with some of that, because of course it was all had to fit into that room. So it was, you really had to think about mm-hmm. it. And I did a lot more of the lifting than I probably should have been doing, really, but I was having to rearrange some of the things that they were doing. So of course I did end up with a raging headache, but actually it was pretty quick. It wasn't raining, which was fantastic. It was certainly a much easier move than the other end. And I'm just glad it's done.
Yeah, very good. Congratulations on that.
Hopefully neither of us will be having to deal with moving and movers for a long, long time.
Amen to that, Daisy. Amen to that.
And so we both just need to get our heads back into the Monday mindset headspace. I've mostly been listening to audiobooks, and I have been getting through an inordinate number of audiobooks, as you can imagine, because it's just been hours and hours of, painting and all the things. And unless it's been something really, really noisy, I've just been either listening on speakers, or quite often I've had to have the headphones on, actually, because there's so much building noise going on next door. But yeah, get it off and getting through at least one audio book in a day. I think I have the Audible annual membership, whatever it is, for the maximum, and I've already used them all, and I'm on the extras. But I did find, I can't remember how I stumbled across, I must have heard an advert for a podcast, but I discovered a load of really interesting podcasts made by Radio 4. I've just listened to one it's called Fever, about trying to track down the origins of where COVID actually started. Spoiler, there's no definite answer, but it was very interesting, sort of 8 parts. So I've just found a nice big storage unit full of free podcasts. So I'm going to make the most of that, but also get back into listening to some of the things we listen to share. I shall be doing that this week, so I've got something to share with you next week.
I was just thinking, some of our favorites that we listen to, they probably saw a dip in their ratings or their listener numbers, their download numbers over the past month. Jim Quick, don't worry, we're back. We're going to start listening again. Your numbers will go up. Because I often listen to, before you and I discuss one when I'm sharing, I often will listen to it 2 or 3 times, because the first time I just listen to see if it's something usable, and then I'll listen again and take some notes. So I'm sure their numbers have really tanked for the past month. So we're going to bring back their support and their numbers.
Yeah, they're back. And yes, we're back on that. And I think I mentioned, and I've forgotten already, the name of it. It's Nudge, I think, wasn't it? The new podcast that I was getting into that I know had quite a few episodes that I was looking forward to listening and sharing. So yeah, I shall be switching my listening from audiobooks to relevant podcasts this week and find something to share with you.
Very good. Until then, hope everyone has also wrapped up a maybe productive or maybe relaxing good summer. I know, again, we're a little further into September by the time you listen to this one, but hope that everyone's doing well. And we'll be back again next week with Daisy has a topic to share.
Hope you have a very wonderful week.